That was the date she requested.
Wait, who managed to request what from US President Donald Trump?
She just called me, as you know.
He's referring to Ursula von der Leyen, the EU's Commission President, who talked with President Trump on Sunday. During a phone call, she convinced him to delay the implementation of the 50% tariff he had suggested on EU goods until July, giving the two sides time to reach a deal. Von der Leyen's request makes it seem like the EU's in a good position for negotiations. Here are three cards the bloc holds. For one, the US relies on the EU, purchasing the largest amount of goods from the bloc, which means imposing massive tariffs on the EU would hurt American consumers and companies.
That would hit aerospace, for instance. So not just Airbus jets, but also the parts that go into the Airbus factories in the US. The same thing with cars. It's not just about the direct exports from Germany. It's also about the car parts that are then assembled in South Carolina and other places in the US.
That underscores a general problem the US faces when negotiating with the EU. Its factories rely on machines and parts from Europe. For example, 70% of precision parts made in the US are produced with European machines, said Germany's top industry group recently. Imposing tariffs on those machines would hurt Trump's own policy of revitalizing manufacturing in the US. But there's a second card the EU holds in those trade negotiations with the US. The political fallout from a trade war. Here, Ursula von der Leyen is in a better position than President Trump.
We know that a trade war would be destructive economically. But if there is one, the US public will blame Trump.
In Europe, on the other hand, the perception is that the US started this fight and Donald Trump's policies are already quite unpopular here. The third card the EU holds, US tech firms make billions of dollars in the EU. Although the EU exports more physical goods to the US dominates when it comes to services. Think of Meta or Google selling ads here, Amazon providing a sales platform, and Microsoft renting out software and cloud services. Some in the EU have suggested imposing retaliatory tariffs on US tech firms. But such an escalation of the trade conflict would also pose a risk to the EU. The bloc is especially reliant on getting cheap energy from the United States. Retaliating against US goods with its own tariffs would increase their prices, hurting industries in the EU that are already reeling from high energy costs. To decrease its dependence on the US, the EU is looking to diversify trade. One way would be strengthening trade relations inside the bloc itself.
It will have to rely on domestic demand and find a way to revive domestic consumption, and that's the only real alternative.
Because a trade war between the US and the EU would massively hit both economies. Such a no-deal scenario could hit the US harder than the EU because other economies could follow the European Union after it showed playing hardball is possible.